If I told you that a single act of kindness on a freezing winter morning changed not just one life, but three, you might think it was just another holiday tale. But what happened in the quiet western town of Hollow Ridge wasn't a miracle born of magic. It was born of a child's compassion, a father's courage, and a widow's long-buried hope. So stay with this story till the very end, because what begins with a lonely woman on a snow-covered bench becomes a Christmas none of them would ever forget, and it might just change the way you see kindness forever. Open Book Chapter 1. The Woman on the Bench. The winter sun hovered low over Hollow Ridge, painting the snow-dusted street in pale strips of gold that offered almost no warmth. Everything looked still, as though the town was holding its breath in the quiet hours before Christmas Eve. Rowan Holston tugged his coat tighter around him as he guided his daughter Mara down the main road, their boots crunching through fresh snow. Errands, simple, ordinary errands, were all he had in mind. A few supplies for their cabin, a toy for Mara, and then a quick return home before the cold deepened. But children have a way of noticing things adults have forgotten how to see. Mara stopped walking so suddenly that Rowan nearly stumbled. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice soft but urgent. "Look." She pointed toward a wooden bench near the old clock tower, and Rowan followed her gaze. There sat Kira Devil, no longer the vibrant doll maker the town once knew, but a lonely widow with soft, swollen eyes and cheeks flushed from crying. Her large frame was wrapped in a fading shawl, and clutched against her chest were two worn rag dolls, held with a tenderness that made Mara's small heart twist. People passed her politely, some nodding, some pretending they didn't notice her grief. But Mara noticed everything: the tightness in Kira's shoulders, the way she blinked too quickly to hide tears, the way her smile to herself wasn't a smile at all. The little girl tugged her father's sleeve again, more insistently this time. "Why is she sad?" Rowan sighed. How could he explain the kind of sadness that outlives seasons? The kind of loneliness that settles in a heart like winter settling into earth. Kira had lost Alden, her husband, 2 winters ago. The fever had taken him the way winter takes flowers, swiftly, without mercy. Since then, the colorful little home near the edge of Hollow Ridge had grown silent. The laughter she once carried like a lantern had dimmed. The dolls she used to sell at every Christmas market now sat unsold, their bright yarn hair gathering dust. She stitched them anyway, because sewing was the only rhythm left in her days and the only thing that kept her heart from breaking completely. The golden decorations strung across town flickered softly above her, mocking her loneliness with their cheer. Every family that walked by reminded her of what she had lost. She didn't expect kindness, not anymore. But life has a way of sending it when we're least prepared to receive it. Rowan finally followed Mara's gaze and felt something inside him shift. He remembered the birthday doll he once bought from Kira when she was still vibrant, still full of warm laughter. Now she sat alone, forgotten by a town that had once depended on her craft. And in that moment, Rowan felt a guilt he couldn't quite name, guilt for being one of many who looked away. The cold wind brushed past them, carrying the scent of pine and distant chimney smoke. Kira brushed away a tear, hoping no one saw. But Mara saw. Children always see the things adults walk past. Then came the question, the one that altered the course of their Christmas forever. "Daddy, can we take her home for Christmas?" Rowan's heart skipped. The innocence in her voice held no fear, no hesitation, only a deep and natural kindness. He looked at Kira again, at her trembling hands, at the fragility in her posture, at the heavy grief she tried so hard to hide. She didn't look needy, she looked abandoned, and sometimes abandonment is the deeper wound. Rowan hesitated, not because he didn't care, but because kindness that matters rarely comes without cost. But when he saw Mara's hopeful eyes, he felt something inside him thaw. Perhaps this was what Christmas was supposed to be, not gifts, not decorations, but humanity. He approached the bench slowly, Mara walking beside him. Kira startled, quickly wiping her tears. She tried to apologize for taking up space, for looking sad, for being someone others had to notice. Rowan gently stopped her, telling her she owed no apology to anyone simply for existing. They talked, softly, carefully. Kira spoke of Alden, of long nights in an empty home, of the dolls she kept making because they were the last pieces of joy she could hold on to. Mara listened with a heart far older than her 7 years. And in that quiet corner of Hollow Ridge, something began to shift, fragile but powerful. Hope, recognition, the moment when strangers stopped being strangers. Then Rowan, glancing at his daughter, gathered the courage to say the words that made Kira's breath catch. "Would you like to spend Christmas with us?" Kira pressed her trembling hand to her mouth. The tears that spilled this time weren't grief alone. And so, with snow beginning to fall like blessings from the sky, Rowan carried her basket of carefully sewn dolls to the wagon, helped her climb aboard, and together they began their journey toward a Christmas that none of them knew had already begun changing their lives. Open Book Chapter 2, The Christmas They Didn't Expect. The road to Rowan's cabin stretched across open fields of white, where the winter sun glimmered weakly over the horizon. Kira sat quietly in the wagon, her hands resting on the basket of dolls as if they were fragile pieces of her soul. Mara sat beside her, humming little tunes, swinging her legs with excitement, chattering about their Christmas tree and the cookies she had helped bake. And although Kira nodded and smiled, the emotions inside her were tangled and overwhelming. No one had invited her anywhere since Alden's passing. People feared grief. They didn't know how to hold it, how to sit beside it, how to look into someone's eyes and still see who they used to be underneath the sorrow. But Mara didn't fear it. She sat close enough for Kira to feel the warmth of another human being for the first time in months. When they reached the cabin, the scent of cinnamon and wood smoke welcomed them. It was small but full of life. Flickering lanterns, ornaments Mara had made from pine cones, a quilt draped over the sofa that Rowan's late wife had sewn before she passed years earlier. Kira paused at the door, uncertain. She felt like a ghost stepping into a world she no longer belonged to. Rowan sensed her hesitation and offered his arm. "You're welcome here. No conditions. No expectations." The simplicity of his words unraveled the tight knot inside her. She stepped in. Mara immediately guided her to the living room, placing the dolls beside the fireplace where they looked almost alive in the warm glow. She touched one gently and whispered, "They're beautiful." No one had said that to Kira in years. The words struck her like sunlight after a long winter. Rowan prepared a warm meal. Nothing extravagant, but comforting. Roasted potatoes, spiced meat, warm bread, and apple stew sweetened with honey. As they ate, the conversation flowed unforced, each question and story revealing pieces of their lives like slowly opening doors. Kira laughed, softly at first, as if surprised by the sound. Mara clapped. She smiled. The child's delight broke something open in Kira's heart. She realized she hadn't smiled without effort in months. Later, as snow settled heavily outside, Rowan lit a small lantern and placed it on the windowsill. "For those we miss," he said quietly. Kira's breath trembled. She whispered Alden's name under her breath, feeling his memory settle beside her gently, not painfully. They decorated cookies together. Mara insisted Kira add bright red icing to hers, even though her hand trembled. Rowan told stories from when he was a boy, funny, embarrassing ones that made Kira laugh until tears filled her eyes. Not sad tears, healing ones. The night grew deep, the kind of deep silence only winter knows. Rowan made up the guest room for Kira, but she hesitated once more. "I don't want to be a burden," she said. Rowan shook his head firmly. "You're not. Tonight, you're family." Family. A word she hadn't felt part of since Alden's passing. As Mara drifted to sleep, she whispered something to Kira before closing her eyes. "I'm happy you came." Those 5 words echoed in Kira's heart long after the cabin fell quiet. She lay awake for a while, looking at the ceiling, at the gentle shadows cast by lantern light. The weight she had carried for so long seemed lighter now, not gone, but shared. And there is power in sharing a burden. Power in being seen.